All right, everybody, now that we are done with creating the plots for all of the 10 character or object variables, now is the time to start doing the analysis, right? So let me just make it a little bigger. I just hope that it is clear to you. Here we are not going to get technical anymore, right? Here all of that which we are going to do is be analytical. Okay, so if you remember previously, what we had done is we had done the analysis for name contract type, which is nothing but the loan type, and we wrote our observations. So the same thing we're gonna do for all of the other variables, all of the remaining variables rather, I can say. Let me adjust the zooming of this thing. This is a little bigger. Okay, now here we have that, and I'll just make it a little bigger. So what we wrote for this particular variable name contract type was cash loans. Most of the customers have taken cash loan, and customers who have taken cash loans are less likely to default. That's what we observed for this particular variable. Next thing, if you see over here, code gender. So here we are looking at the gender. Ideally in our analysis we do not consider the gender thing, because this might turn out to be creating the discrimination. All right, but here if you see, I'm still considering, but I would highly encourage you not to include gender thing in your analysis. Okay, specifically if you are residing in certain countries where this is highly prohibited. Okay, for example, if you work in some if you are working in some western countries, there if you are in some western countries, there black and white is highly discriminated, and if your data has certain columns which has the value black and white, just avoid that. Okay, now over here what you see is this is code gender. This is specifically saying which sort of gender. So if you see, most of the time females have taken loan, mostly females have taken loan, and they are less likely to default. So what we can say is females are safer persons to target for giving the loans, right? So if you see, male default rate is somewhere 10%, while the female default rate is below 8%. So whatever loan has been given to male, out of that 10% are defaulting, and whatever has been given to female, out of that only less than 8%, somewhere 7% female are defaulting. Rest of them are repaying the loan on means as per the expectation. So I will just write it down for code gender. What we observed is code gender. You also do the same thing, or if you have already done, then just write it down, just compare that whatever we are observing over here, right? Female population, females are safer, females are less defaulter, or let me just write default rate for females are just approximately 7%. Okay, so which is safer, because we have taken, mostly the female population has taken the loan. Most of the loans have been taken by female, and the default rate is approximately 7%, which is safer and lesser than male. All right, so this is how we conclude. The next thing which we're gonna see is name type suit, right? So what sort of name suit type the customer have, right? So if you're confused about this, what this variable means, so you remember we downloaded the variable type also, variable description also. Let's just have a look on that. All right, so here we have the name description, variables description. Let's just see name type suit, right? Let me just find it for you, right? Name type suit, right? So it says who was accompanying client when he was applying for the loan. That means when the customer was applying for the loan, who was living with them. Okay, who was accompanying client. Okay, so unaccompanied, most of the time when the loan was taken by the client, they were not accompanied, they were unaccompanied. Okay, so and if you see, these populations are very less, almost negligible. Okay, so either the people were unaccompanied or they were with family. Client were either with family or they were unaccompanied. So mostly when they were unaccompanied, they when they took the loan. Okay, and whoever has taken loan out of that other B category is something which is highly defaulted. Okay, so that means what we can say is unaccompanied are taking most of the loans and the default rate is approximately 8%. So if you see the default rate for at the time when the client was taking loan, and at that point of time they were with children, right? So those are the safest one when you see by this category, right? Name type suit. By name type suit, at the time of applying for the loan, the customers who were unaccompanied are have taken most of the loans, but the customers who are living with children are less likely to default, but the number of loans which they have taken is too low. So ultimately when we come over here, here is the unaccompanied. So mostly whatever loan they have taken more than 200,000, somewhere 250,000 loans they have taken, right? 250,000 customers were unaccompanied at the time of taking the loan, and the default rate is somewhere say 8.5 or 9%, right? So we can still say that the unaccompanied is safer one, because that's the biggest volume, right? So what we can say, what we can write the conclusion is, for that the name type suit, if this is something which is quite obvious for you, you can watch it in XX speed. Okay, this is going to be a little longer, so you gotta be bear with this. Okay, so over here most of the time unaccompanied people had taken most of the loans, and the default rate is approximately 8.5 or 9%. Okay, that's what the default rate is, which is still safer, which is still okay. All right, now let's move to the next variable. Next one which we have is name income type. What is the source of income they are getting? Okay, let's just have exact look at the definition of this variable, name income type. Okay, so it says client's income type, whether he is a businessman, working, or on maternity leave. So at the time when the client was applying for the loan, what was the income type? So if you see, most of the loans which has been given to the working professionals, right? And working professionals have the default rate approximately 10% or even less than that. Okay, somewhere 9% we can say. Most of the defaulters are those who are on maternity leave, but the number of loans which has been given to the people who are on maternity leave almost negligible. There is nothing at all, almost. Okay, so what we can say is working professional, giving loan to the working professional is much safer, right? So if you see, working professionals have been given most of the loans, and then followed by commercial associates, and then pensioner. Okay, so and default rate, if you see, is working professionals have the lesser default rate than commercial associates, and then pensioner have almost no pensioners also have low default rate. So what we can see is this is a very good segment to target for the loan. Working professionals, either working professionals or commercial associates or the pensioners. Okay, so let's just write, we are doing this analysis for which variable? For income type variable. Okay, I'll just write it down. Okay, and then we can say the safest segment is, the safest segments are working commercial associates, segments are working commercial associates or and pensioners, they are the safest one, because if you see, they are the one who are taking most of the loans and their default rate is also low compared to this all, right? So this is a very good segment to target for giving the loan. Okay, further, if you want, you can do the bivariate analysis and you can use the loan type on this particular variable and see what sort of loan fits well to these customers. Okay, now let's move forward, and here we are not able to recognize which sort of variable is this, right? What sort of variable is this? Okay, so we can, what we can do is, this has the value higher education. Okay, so this is the education variable. Okay, this is the qualification variable. Let me see what exactly the variable name is. Do we have something called qualification? No. Education, yes, name education type. This is the variable name education type. I just understood what if you are not able to figure out which type of variable is this, what you can do is, in this over here, just right over here, what you can do, you can just increase this spacing and then you will get the variable name. But I'm not going to do that, because as of now we are going to focus mostly on the analysis part. Okay, so here is what we were looking at. Okay, so let me just write it down over here. I know this is becoming longer video, so but because we are doing the analysis and it's very useful, right, to understand, and I'm taking it in very slow manner, right, so that it could be easy to understand and you could learn more out of it. Okay, so here if you see, the most of the loans which has been given to those customers who has secondary special education, or what is the other value which we had. Okay, so if you are struggling to see what are the values that are available in this particular variable, what you can do is, you can just write a quick query over here. Let's just say app, and write that variable. The variable name which we have is this. Okay, we just want to see what all are the variables that it has, right? And you can say unique values, unique. Let's just run this. It's taking time. Here is what we got: secondary or secondary special. This sort of secondary special, higher education, incomplete higher education, lower secondary, and academic degrees. These are the values which we have over here, right? So now again, let me make it a little bigger. So here it is nothing but the secondary or secondary special. So what we see over here is, secondary or secondary special is the segment who has been given most of the loans, right, and their default rate is also relatively high, though it is less than lower society, but lower society has been given almost negligible number of loans. Okay, but if you see what is the safest one, so here the higher educated people have been given the loan of somewhere somewhere 80,000, maybe 80,000 or 90,000 loans. 80 or 90,000 customers have been given the loans in higher education segment, and out of that the default rate is even less than 6%. Okay, so that is quite good, because for this segment the rate of interest is somewhere 9%. Okay, more than 9% even, and this segment has the default rate even less than 6%. Okay, so this is a safest segment to give the loan. Okay, followed by, can we say, academic degree. Academic degree has been given the loan almost negligible number of times, so this is the safest segment. So what we can say is our conclusion will be higher education. Higher education is the safest segment to give the loan with a default rate of less than 5%. So if you are getting the idea how do we do the analysis, because most of the time we struggle how exactly we have to do the analysis, from that perspective only we are making this video, right, where the people struggle to understand. These are quite obvious thing, but we just do not figure out where exactly we have to start with and what exactly we have to analyze. So for those kind of people this video is created, right? So now possibly if you follow this you will get those understanding how the analysis is done, right? So that's what I'm trying to target over here. Okay, so now we are done with analyzing this name, education, type. How many variables we are done analyzing? 1 2 3 4 5 more to go. Okay, so here name, family, status. Okay, let me just write it down. Let me just see the definition of this name, family, status. Okay, this is quite obvious what this particular variable mean, right? But still I would show you here. It simply means family status of the client. That means whether the customer whom we are giving the loan, whether they are married, single, or whatever it is. So let's just see. So most of the loans have been given to married people, followed by single or not married, and we can also say civil marriage kind of stuff. But the most number, we can say these two segment, right, single or not married and married, this is the two segment who has been given the most of the loans. And to some extent this is also considerable civil marriage. So what is the total number of loans which has been given to this segment? Somewhere 25,000 customers are there under civil marriage. But you see civil marriage has the highest default rate, which is almost 10%, right? If you look at this side, let's have a look at married segment. So married segment has been given the most of the loans, right, which is more than 175,000 or approximately 175,000. but the default rate, if you see, the default rate is somewhere 8%, somewhere 8%. The default rate is for married person, which is quite less than with those compared to those who are civil marriage. Okay, both of them are married, but those who are civil married, I don't know what does exactly mean when it says civil marriage, not going to get into that. But yes, they have the highest default rate, and married has the lower default rate. Okay, widow has even less default rate, and people who are unknown have taken negligible people who have unknown marital status have taken almost negligible number of loans, and their default rate is also not significant, even not visible over here. So what we can say is married segment is the safer one. And what is the number of loans has been given to widow? That is also very low, right? So married segment is something which is safe to target. Okay, let me just write over here, married people are safe to target. Default rate is almost 8%. 8%, almost 8. The default rate is almost 8%. Okay, now the next variable, this is going to be name, housing type. Whether the customer, let's just have a look at the definition of this variable, right? So what it says is name, housing type. What is the housing situation of the client, whether he is rented or what it is, right? So that is also interesting one. Okay, let me just put it over here. So after we are done with analysis of all these things, we will final conclusion or the story kind of thing, right? So let's just say a name, housing type, and let's go back to our graph, and over here we see most of the loans which have been given has been given to those people who has their own house or apartment. And what is the default rate? Rented people are having the highest default rate, which is approximately 12%, and those who have their own house or apartment, they are less likely to default. You see, they have somewhere 8% of default rate, isn't it? 8.1 somewhere. Okay, office apartments are also having less default rate, but you see the number of loans which have been given to them is too low. So what we can say is the loans which are being given to those people who have their own house or apartment are safer segment. Okay, so you see, people having house or apartment are safe to give the loan with default rate of 8%, approximately 8%. So you see, mostly wherever the default rate is somewhere around between 7 to 8, or maybe somewhere 5% also are the safer segment. This is what the pattern we are getting. Okay, so let's just see next one. Here we have occupation type. What sort of occupation the people are doing? So most of the time the loans who have taken are laborers. They have the laborers, somewhere 140,000 laborers have taken the loan, followed by core staff, and then sales staff, and then managers and drivers. Okay, now let's just see who are the safest one. Okay, these 3 or 4 segment we see: laborers, core staff, managers, sales staff, and drivers. Let's see who has the highest default rate. So if you see over here, the low skill laborers have the highest default rate, but we can ignore that because the loans which have been given to them is too low in number. Okay, so we do not have sufficient numbers, so we can just ignore that. We can just say that we should not focus on this particular segment, or if we are focusing, we need to think on the rate of interest and all those things, right? So let's make a conclusion also, so that we can say whom to not target. Okay, occupation type, occupation. Okay, let me write in capital letter, type. So what we can say is low skill laborers, low skill laborers are highest defaulters. No offense to this particular segment, but it's just I'm trying to figure out the analysis or the solution. Okay, now who is less likely to default? Those are accountants are less defaulters. Okay, now because obvious reason, they are in accounting, they know the finance, they are quite educated financially. Now the people who had taken most number of loans are laborer. Let's have a look at their default behavior, where the laborer segment is. Let me just find that. Here it is, right? So if you see over here, they have somewhere 7.5% of default rate. Okay, that is still good, not bad. Okay, and after that, laborer, core staff, what is the default rate for core staff, sales staff, drivers, and managers? Let's have a look. Laborers we understood. Where is the core staff? Core staff has even lesser default rate. Alright, so what we see over here is core staff even have even lesser rate of lesser default rate. Okay, and then the next one, managers, we had to see core staff and managers have almost equal default rate. HR staffs have also HR staff, core staff, and managers, all these three have almost same rate of interest. Let's have a look at drivers, right? And where the drivers are. So the drivers are here. They have high rate of high default rate. So we should not target to the drivers also, right? So let me just write over here. Low skill laborers and drivers. You see the total number of loans which have been given to the drivers are somewhere, 18,000 customers have been given, and out of 18,000 somewhere 11% are defaulters, which is too high, which is means comparatively too high. Who are safer? The safest one is core staff, managers, HR. What is the total number of HR staff have been given? Almost no number of loans, right? I mean, the number of customers are too low, so we can ignore that. Okay, let's ignore the HR staff. We will focus. We can say core staff, managers, and laborers are safe to give loan, right? Though laborers also have the relatively higher default rate, but comparatively higher default rate, but still we can consider them. So let's just say let's make our analysis. Core staff. All right, so let's just say that core staff and managers, we can say core staff, laborers are safer to target with a default rate of less than equals to 10%. Okay, 10%. Still, if we write 10%, that might not give the accurate picture. So 7.5 to 7.5 to 10% rather, we can say. Okay, so this is what the rate of interest, rate of default we are getting. I'm sorry, I keep on saying rate of interest. Just whenever I say rate of interest, just consider that I'm trying to say rate of default. Let's move to the next one. How many more we have? Right, so this is the second last. Almost we are done. So weekday approval process start. Okay, so this is something you can ignore. I mean, this is highly, this barely make any difference. Even if you see at the default rate, how is that related to, the default rate? When you are applying on Sunday, then is it that you are more likely to be a defaulter? You are less likely. You are I mean, those customers whose approval was processed on Sunday are too low, right? So this is highly going to make any difference. So let's just ignore this. Okay, next, which we're gonna focus is organization type. So here we will say organization type. Let's just see. And what does that mean? Let's just see what does that mean. Though it is very easy to understand what does that mean, but still let's just have exact name, exact definition. Type of organization where the clients are working. Yes, so where the clients are working. All right, so let's just make it bigger. And if you see over here, so most of the customers who have taken loan are working in business entity type 3, and the number of customers are more than 60,000, followed by XNA. XNA is something you can ignore. Then over here, self-employed are the second highest. Then what you can see is business type entity 2. Then next one which you can see is others, right? So these are the customers who has taken most number of loans. And what is the status of their default rate? Let's just have a look at that as well. Okay, so here let's come back to over here. All right, so if you see, the transport type 3 has the highest number of defaulter, which is more than 15%, and the number of loans which have been given to transport type 3, it is too low, right? So whatever loan you have given to those customers, let's say there are only 1 or 2 thousand of customers, but out of that 15% are defaulter. This is not good. Okay, so what we can say is let's try to find a business entity type 3. What is their status? Where do we have business entity type 1, 2 and 3? This is still looking better, isn't it? it's somewhere 9%. Okay, 9.5% rather, you can say. It is less than 10, isn't it? It's less than 10. Okay, less than 10% business entity type. So this is good, right? Whatever loans, approximately 60% of the customers are from that category, and the default rate which they have is somewhere 9.5%. Still okay. Now the next type which we have is XNA, is something we have to ignore. Self-employed. Let's have a look at self-employed default rate. Where is the self-employed? Self-employed, just write that into the comment section if you just identified where the self-employed is. I'm still not able to see where the self-employed is. It is here we go, right? Self-employed. So this has default rate higher than business entity type 3, but still not the highest one. Okay, self-employed has somewhere little more than 10%. Okay, somewhere 10.5 we can say. Then after self-employed, what else that we have? Self-employed is the second one, and then you have other. For other, what is the default rate we have? Where is the other? All right, here we have the other. So others are the safest one. Okay, so let's just write our conclusion over here. Organization type, transport type, transport type 3, highest defaulter. Okay, then the safest one is trade type 4, but the number of loans are given too low, right? So what we can say is others are others, and then business entity type 3. Where is business entity type 3? Business entity type 3, and then the next one was, what is the next one? Self-employed. Self-employed was also okay, right? But still have more default rate, because people try their business, and if that fails, the loan also fails, right? Are good to go with. Okay, default rate around 10%. Okay, so we are done with all the categorical variables, right? So we are done with all the categorical variables, right? And here comes our final analysis, right? So as of now, this is with categorical variable. Now we will move to numerical variables, then we will do the bivariate analysis, and many more. So many more to go, right? So as of now, this is it. You also try to write down your observation, and you can feel free to challenge my observations. I'll be very happy to read out whatever you observe, and just put that into the comment section. I will also learn, because like I said, this Learnerea channel is a platform for collaborative learning, right? So just feel free to put your observation into the comment. I'll be very happy to learn and read through that. Okay, I'll definitely reply on that. Thank you very much. Let's catch up in the next one, and let's see what all we have to explore.